Welcome back to another Post Media Ottawa Senators panel. I'm Bruce Garrioch, pleased to be joined today by TSN Ottawa Bureau Chief Claire Hanna. And Claire, as we speak today, we're about 3 weeks from the NHL trade deadline, and the Ottawa Senators have 6 or 7 unrestricted free agents they're going to have to deal with. And at the top of that list is Nick Paul. And where do you kind of see Nick Paul going here right now?
It's funny. I think about this probably too much in my free time because I'm trying to think how the organization might be thinking. I'm trying to think of the offers he might be getting. And I've come to the conclusion that I think Nick Paul is a really valuable top 6 or top 9 forward.
Yeah.
And I think about this in terms of how diverse he is. He can play center, he can play on both wings. Um, I think about when Thomas Chabot took that hit from Tom Wilson against the Capitals. Who was the first to step in and have his back? Nick Paul. He fought Tom Wilson. So he's really well rounded. And then I even think back, Bruce, to the World Championship in Latvia and how, nobody ever would have thought Canada would have won. Nick Paul was part of that group that really, they had this great camaraderie. So I know he's like well liked in the team room. And I just think that I'm not sure where negotiations are with him, but he deserves to ask for a fair price. And I'm not sure what that is, but if he doesn't get it, then I don't hesitate to think other teams will be willing to pick him up. So I just I don't know where they might be going with him, but I think he's going to be an important glue guy down the stretch.
Well, it's interesting, Claire, because I think you're correct on all counts. And my take on it is, I think my sense from speaking to both sides is that they've pretty much agreed a 3-year deal is appropriate in this case. And I was always told in negotiations that once you have the term worked out, then it's about money. And so I guess one thing, in my opinion, that Nick Paul has to decide on is he's had tremendous success under this coach. He's got a coach who believes in him. He's never played anywhere else in his career. You've seen guys leave and not have the success. I think he's got to factor that in a little bit too.
That's a great point, and one that I hadn't considered, Bruce. So, yeah, great point to be made. I'm just going to leave it at that. King Bruce
You
right
know, yeah, no, and the other thing is, I mean, we'll see where this goes in the coming weeks. Myself personally, I think he's going to sign. Don't you feel the same way that at some point this just gets worked out?
Yeah, and that's where I've continued to lean because I know he gets along with this group so well, and I think he sees, just the promising future that they have.
Yeah,
And I think about what he does in the community, points for Paul, and
yeah.
for the mental health initiatives with the Ottawa Hospital. And so to me, he's like not entrenched in this community, but he likes it here, and I don't think he
Yeah.
wants to leave.
The other guy who I think offers a very interesting dilemma, I know I've had several discussions about this with Cheryl Pounder is Anton Forsberg.
I
I
knew you were
just
going to
don't.
say him. I knew you were going to say him.
Yeah, and I just don't know what to do about him.
Yeah.
Because
So, and sorry,
you
you
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, you go ahead, please.
I've been thinking this is the other one I think about a lot. And I actually, to me, my answer is more clear than the Nick Paul answer, to be completely honest. Because when I look at the goaltending journey that this team has had this season, everybody, wanted to know how Matt Murray would perform. And in the latter half, since January 1st, he's been fantastic. But there's always this question of whether he's healthy or not, because he has been inconsistent with some random injuries. And so you can't really put him as like the clear number one guy, if only for do you know if he's going to be in the lineup. Anton Forsberg has consistently stepped in as that 1B guy and been really consistent. And I don't think beyond Anton Forsberg would you trust Gustafsson at this point in time to be like the number 2 guy. We don't know about Soberg. And so with that being said, I just think it would be a very risky thing to let Anton Forsberg go, because when you don't have Murray in the lineup, then are you just going to ride Gustafsson? That's just my
Yeah.
opinion.
No, and I agree with you. My only issue on this one is Gustafson's on a one-way contract next year, and whether we like that or not, that's a factor. And
Yeah.
you aren't going to really be able to send him to the minors because you are going to lose him. So, and you can't keep 3 goalies around. So, to me, my sense on this, Claire, is unless someone makes you an offer you can't refuse at the deadline, keep Anton Forsberg and make your decision at the end of the year. Let Philip Gustafson play in Belleville. I don't think he's been able to. I don't know how to put this. He hasn't been able to capture the magic he had last season to finish the year. So let him play in Belleville and then make your decision on whether he's ready to be a backup or not. Because to me, Claire, that's a decision that has to be made before camp. How do you feel?
Yeah, I think you've nailed it. And you said an offer they can't refuse. I think, in my words, it's just going to take a very generous offer for them to let Anton Forsberg
Yeah.
go. And that one way
Second round
contract,
pick, you think? Or high second round pick, high end
I'm just,
prospect?
yes, I
You
was
were
going to
saying high
say,
end prospect, yeah.
yeah,
Sorry.
that's what I was
Sorry to
thinking.
cut you off.
No, it's okay. And I was just trying to think of like, what if it was like a high third round pick and a high end prospect? But I do think it's got to be really nice for them to let him go because he's really done so well. He got them out of that slump they were in November, like single handedly, and to be playing with that kind of pressure, like put that on his resume. It's really impressive. So I think it's going to take quite a bit for them to move him.
As we speak today, Claire, the Senators are coming off a 2-1 loss to the Montreal Canadiens Saturday night at home, and one of the guys who was back in the lineup was Colin White, and I was happy for Colin White because having been around him a long time, he's a very good guy. He's a very funny guy. He's the kind of guy you want to have a beer with. And he scores a goal in his comeback, and I thought, you know what, Claire, he's looked pretty good. He looked pretty good.
You have so much more experience with Colin White. I've only heard him talk to the media 2 times, but in those 2 times, I can echo what you said. Yeah, you want to have a beer with him. He really speaks his truth and doesn't
Yeah.
kind of try to hide around what he thinks he should say, except for that one time when he hesitated to talk about when his post shoulder injury was preventing him from using the bathroom the right way.
Yeah.
If we could say that. Um, but yeah, and you could see right when he scored that goal, he was so pumped up, but his teammates, like everybody just rallied around him. That was the highlight of the night, obviously, for the Senators, given that they lost the game. But you got to remember, he is coming in so fresh. He has practiced for a long time now. We saw him come out, I think, on January 2nd or January 3rd to take some skates. So he should be coming in with that kind of energy. And when you haven't been in the lineup and you've watched a team from the sidelines for so long, if he had come in any other way, I would really be doubting where he should be. So I think we shouldn't judge Colin White on that performance in his first game back. Let's judge him in 6 or 7 games.
Well, and I wonder how we're going to feel, Claire. And I don't know that we're going to see it this season, but I do think we're at some point here on this Florida trip. We're going to see Josh Norris, Tim Stutzla, and Colin White. Okay, and short of Shane Pinto, that's probably the way they would have lined up coming out of training camp. Do you think once those three guys are back, and I don't know what they're going to do with Tierney. He won't be back here next year anyways. I'm not sure they could find anyone to trade him to at the deadline. I'm starting to go on here, but do you think though we'll get a true picture of their center ice position if they can get Shane Pinto back in maybe the last 3 weeks of the season?
Well, I think you would assume we get a true picture, but Bruce, because they're likely out of a playoff picture position,
Yeah.
and we've seen DJ Smith like earlier in the season really shuffling around defensemen with Thomas Chabot. I don't know if they're going to run with like what they think their top lines could be necessarily because they might be getting guys in just to see how chemistry works. And I'm sure there's going to be a couple of games where they're like, okay, let's roll with how we think, like maybe for some of their tougher games down the stretch, let's put our best lineup out to see how they match up and build some of that. But I think it's a chance for DJ Smith to do some experimenting. And so he might not give fans that many chances to see how things could line up in a perfect situation. That's my take on it.
Yeah, I think one of the things though is if they get Norris back on this road trip, it's going to take some pressure off of Tim Stutzla because I think in a lot of ways, he's had to carry the ball. Nick Paul's been playing center. That's not his natural position. He's not really the guy that has been relied on to provide offense. In my eyes, it's been Tim Stützle.
Well, but I think it's been a great opportunity for Tim Stützle to get those reps in the center. And, we saw him on the wing at the beginning of the season, and I thought that's what DJ Smith planned on doing. But now
Yeah.
it's been an opportunity for Tim to grow in that position. But this is where, if you get Josh Norris back, obviously Colin White as well, and maybe Shane Pinto, but we'll see about that one.
Yeah, we'll
Get
see.
those guys back, like, then you can shuffle Tim around and play with him in other positions. And that's kind of what I mean by experimenting for DJ Smith.
Right. And last topic I want to discuss was they have played very well defensively, and you did touch on Matt Murray earlier, but Matt Murray's numbers, I read a stat somewhere. The Matt Murray's numbers since January 1st are better than any of the Leafs goaltenders. And he's actually in the top 10 in the NHL. And I think I'm not comparing him to the Leaf goaltenders. We saw the Leafs.
You just did, Bruce.
I know the Red Wings put 7 up on them on Saturday night, and Jack Campbell has something like an 867 save percentage in the last 2 months. I guess what I'm saying is they've played better defensively, but it starts in goal, doesn't it?
Well, it's like, does the tail wag the dog or does the dog wag the tail? We could have this debate because I love that Matt Murray.
Let's ask Hank. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay. Well, and I think about when he had that great stretch mid-January, and somebody asked, what would you say has changed for you in net between now and November? And he's like, nothing. And he's going to have to. It was a great answer, I think, because maybe he was feeling like he was playing that way. Personally, when I watch him now, he just seems more confident, more comfortable. Like he's just moving really loosely, being able to just make an adjustment last minute if the pass is put that way or whatever. But I do think the defense in front of has grown tremendously. Like Thomas Chabot is still doing what he was doing at the beginning of the season, but the young guys around him, whether he's paired with Brandstrom, whether he's it's back with Zub, or whether it's Jacob Bernard Docker, or some of those other young guys improving, they've gotten more confident. And so that confidence in front of Matt, it's like you feel how your teammates emotionally are. And when they're tight, you get tight too. And so for me, I think Matt Murray is just feeding off of the confidence that these younger guys have started to gain.
Well, and you know what? He finally started to gain some of the form that the Senators expected when they got him from the Pittsburgh Penguins, a 2-time Stanley Cup champion. I think he's making this team feel good. Obviously, we're going to see changes at the deadline, and we'll watch what happens here in the next 3 weeks or so. We appreciate your time today, though, Claire. For the Post Media Senators panel, I'm Bruce Garrioch, pleased to be joined by TSN Ottawa Bureau Chief Claire Hanna.